Welcome to this video where I will be talking a bit about my thoughts on the spirit world. And I will start with addressing a bit about the fact that I have an ASMR video where we are working with opening the third eye. And not just opening the third eye, but opening the intuitional part of the third eye in such way that we can utilize it to kind of know ourselves and know what we must do and kind of get guidance in the things we have around us to sort of from the universe itself to kind of know what we must do and what is the right thing, or not maybe the right thing always, but just to kind of have identify the alternatives that might work. But I also said in that ASMR video that I will not open up the third eye to the spirit world in that video where we were processing, because that is like a different thing. And I don't know if you ever had experience of anything to do with paranormal stuff. And I have some stories that I kind of, that happened in my life where I sort of encountered the spirit world. And I am a person that I think I have easy to pick up things, I sort of sensing things, I kind of picking up stuff, And I think a lot of people have this, but some people are just not really paying that much attention to it, or maybe they don't trust their intuition. And if you don't, I think you have to work with your intuition as the main part, because with your intuition you will sense and you will know things. And then eventually, if you ever have the desire, you can maybe also have a little bit of openness into the spirit world. But when I was a kid, I went to school, and I had a situation in my life where I kind of wanted to meet spirits, I wanted to have encounter with a ghost. And me and a friend, we set up like a wish together that we were like asking for this loud out in the forest. We want to encounter a ghost. And a few weeks after, like, we were very like having this kind of desire, and we were praying, we were asking for meeting a ghost. I mean, we were like kids, you have to think about it. We were kids, maybe around 7 years old. And one day we were together in her house, and we were absolutely alone there because her parents were in another city giving birth to her brother. And we were together, we were only the two of us inside the house, and we were making a lot of noise. We were like dancing and playing music. And then it was like in the springtime, so it was not so much wind outside, but all of a sudden, so they had, the house was kind of constructed that they had the entrance door, and we were just inside of that kind of living room when you're entering the house. And then they had like a long hallway in the other direction, and the kitchen was over here to this side, and a long hallway. And in that hallway there was like a like a laundry room, there was like a shower and a sauna, and then there were 2 bedrooms, and then there were like a door at the back, and that door was closed. So inside one of the bedrooms there was like a window open for like fresh air. And all of a sudden, as we were dancing and playing in the like in this other part of the house, we just hear that the door that was into the laundry room that we could see from where we were in this big room, it just kind of slams. It was like a wind that made a sound like boom, and slammed the door. And we were like looking at each other. We got scared, because it happened all of a sudden. And we were looking at each other, and then we were like, okay, maybe it was just the wind. But then the door handle, it started to, as we were watching the door, because it slammed, and we were like, what? And then the door handle started to go down slowly. And it went down until it was like this. And it was just staying like that. And we were looking at each other, and we started screaming because we got so scared. We thought it's like a ghost or something strange, you know. And when we started screaming together, the door handle slowly started to go up. So the door never opened, and it went up, and we just ran out of the house. And we ran out on the yard of the house, and then we went back in, and we checked the entire house, and there was nobody in there. And the back door that they had like to the back of the house, it was locked. Like nobody could have, even if they were trying to sneak in, they couldn't even have gotten in there. And the only kind of airflow that was into the house, it was from the one of the bedrooms. But it's like a long hallway, and then you had the laundry room and the sauna to this side, and the shower, and then you continue, and then there is 2 bedrooms like this to the sides, and in this bedroom there was the window. So the wind must have gone like this all the way here and slammed the door. And even if it seemed very unlikely that it can have that kind of force all of a sudden, because also how the house was situated and where the window was, it was a kind of, it wasn't really blowing that much in that direction. But of course, maybe the wind slammed the door, but we cannot explain how, as it got quiet, that the door handle started to go down. Because we checked the door handle, there was nothing on the back of the door, nothing hanging on the door handle, and the door handle wasn't even, you know, like easy to kind of hold down. You had to use pressure to actually hold it down. And I had the sensation kind of that we were encountering a man, and probably the grandfather of this my friend. And after this scenario, we were scared, and my friend's father said that, okay, you two don't play with any more of this. Don't play with ghosts, don't scare yourself, just stop, no more ghost. And after that we kind of stopped. And then in my school we happened to have like a medium, like a psychic person coming, or at least claiming to be psychic. And this, he was like a man, and he was coming to have like a lecture about it, you know. And as he was there having a lecture to us, he were like saying out in the audience with the school kids, and he was pointing at the direction at where I was sitting, and he was saying that, I know that some of you have been you know, encountering and taking contacts with spirits, but I'm telling you, please do not do this, because it's gonna, you will not be happy from it, you know, it will not bring you happiness or anything. And he was looking at me when he was saying it, so I felt like he kind of, I don't know how he could know, but if he was psychic, he maybe sensed that there was something with me. And so after that, I took like a note, and I thought, I'm gonna stop with this, you know, I'm gonna stop. And I had some situations when I was a kid. For example, I had this, there was like an old house next to where I was living, and from that house there was like a lady, an old lady, who I kind of encountered, could sense her, and she was like, she said she can teach me things. And one time she even showed me where there was gold, because I found like a gold piece. And when I found this, she kind of showed me, and then I went indoor to show my father, and he was like, how did you find this stone? And I was like, oh, there was the old lady telling me. And he was like, what kind of old lady? And I was realizing that he doesn't see this, or he doesn't sense this old lady. And I was like, just, you know, as a kid, I was just like, no, never mind, I just found it myself. And I also had a scenario where my father went missing in the forest. And my mother, she was kind of worried because he didn't come back at home. And then I told her, Mom, blah, blah, blah. Like I told her, where is my father? What exact place is he at? And I told her that he is injured. And, you know, and she was listening and she thought, okay, you are strange. And after a while, she went searching for him and she found him. No, he was not injured. I think it was like his machine was broken or something, because this is when I was very young, you know. So she went there to exactly that place and she found him. And you know, there was like maybe the tire or something was broken, and she found him. And she is the one who told me about this, and she said, like, when you were a kid, this is what you did. And I can't remember me experiencing that, but I know that she had told me. And I had some like other kind of situations later on in my life where I kind of encounter and communicated with the spirit world. And you know, there is different ways that you might facing this. It could be through dreaming. For example, one time I had a dream about a small girl, and she was buried in clay, and I could see her face, and she came to me in the dream and she said, you know, I'm not found. I'm buried in the clay and nobody has found me, but this person of your friend know who I am. So if you can tell him what happened to me. And I woke up the day after and I thought, that's so weird. That's so very strange. And I thought, should I tell him? Should I not tell him? Because this was not like a friend that I hang out with a lot. But I contacted him and I told him, like, you know, I just dreamt this very strange thing. If you don't mind if I tell you. And he said, like, yeah, you can tell me. And I told him this, that there was like a small girl, told him what she looked like, and that she was buried in the clay and nobody had found her. And I told him kind of what it looks like around. And then he told me as an answer to this that his small cousin, had been missing since a landslide in his home country, and nobody had yet found her. And he sent me a photo of her, and I was like, that's the girl, you know, that's the girl. I said, like, she looked very much same like as in the dream. And then a few hours later that same day, like they've been out searching for this girl, he contacted me and he said, like, they found her. She's underneath the clay. She's dead. And I was like, okay, well, all right, you know. And the problem with this type of dreaming is that you don't really control it. Maybe you just are very open to the spirit world, and especially the fact that the people that you encounter in your life, you might pick up stuff from them. So because you have a connection to some people, that is how you kind of can get in tune with this spirit world. For example, the house that I have, it's an interesting story, because in the summer before I got the house, I dreamt that there was a lady, and she was telling me in the dream, there was like another lady also, but she was like far away. She wasn't very communicative in the dream. And this lady, she told me, she was like blonde and she lived in a very old house. And she told me that my brother had gotten a house, and he had um, like set some furnitures from the house on fire at my other brother's house. And she told me that she kind of explained what type of furnitures it was. It's a very old, typical furniture style in Sweden. And she said that, like, that he should not be doing this. Like, you must tell him that don't burn the furnitures from this house, because I want them to, you know, continue. And then she also told me, and for you, this other lady, she has a message that the spirit world has decided that you are gonna get a house in a specific place in Sweden, and it's like nobody else can like can make that change, because it's like the spirit world has decided that you're gonna have this house. And also she said like that something would happen in the kind of in the world that would make it really important that I stay in this house. And the COVID, that's how I kind of knew that okay, something is going to happen. And then the COVID happened, and I knew that I would stay in this house. And and the day after I had a dream, so let's go back just the day after the dream, I told my mother, I said like, because I was living in the south of Sweden at this time, so I asked my mother like, you know, my brother, have he like burnt some stuff from the house that he got at my other brother's house, like some old furnitures? And my mother was like, yeah, he did that. He did that yesterday, you know. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, because and I told her about the dream. And then a few months later, I got the house here. And it was, it just, I just got it, you know. And I could never have imagined that I would have gotten a house in Sweden like this. But it happened. So what I'm trying to explain with these small like bits of how I kind of have encountered the spirit world is the fact that if you are actively, you know, sensing and kind of sensing the picking up things, you become like almost like a, what is it called, like this object that's just absorbing energies from your surrounding. You might pick up stuff, and you have like different layers of your consciousness that, you know, is serving to this type of information flow that you may be picking up. And the third eye is very important for it. But I'm just saying that there can also be maybe not really supporting messages that you would get from the spirit world. And that's why it's not always wise to have, you know, this connection open. You know, it's not like, for example, if you go to a city where there's a lot of people, and especially in these days, there is a lot of, you know, people who have passed away, you know, and they're kind of unfinished business. They're kind of, you know, energies. Maybe they had very strong emotions or something. And if they're leaving that type of energy and kind of memories and things, you might sense it, you know, and it can be very overwhelming if you gonna open up to all the spirits and just let them use you to kind of, you know, be seen or have their stories heard about somebody. And I had also, it's like some of these messages that you might get when you kind of sensing and stuff, it's maybe not the messages that you want to deliver to people who are alive. And I had like I had recently a very terrible kind of spiritual encounter. And it was, I was somewhere in Sweden, and I saw this man, just a man, and there was like a man with him, you know, like an old man with him, like his grandfather. And I was thinking, why is this grandfather with him? But the grandfather had kind of a terrible secret, you know. So what kind of information I got, I just, the first word that I got was cannibal. And I thought that, oh my God, this cannot, why am I thinking this even? Because I'm myself, I'm vegan, you know, so this is not my, it's not from me, this type of information coming. I'm picking up something from this man, and especially because he has some kind of other energy with him. And what information I got was that his grandfather, who lived in, you know, in the middle of 1800th century in like in North Sweden, in a small village, he was living, and he had like kids, and one of the kids passed away, maybe 5 years old, a small boy. And this boy, he died in, for example, November. This is what I got for information, and I would say middle of 1800th century. And he died, and they put him in like a coffin, and they put him upstairs because they couldn't bury him. And it was this grandfather, like the father of this child, he had a problem with his left hip. He couldn't walk, he couldn't do stuff, he couldn't hunt, he couldn't fend, he couldn't like acquire food in the winter. And I read, after I had this encounter, and I sensed that his grandfather had actually been cannibal on this child, I read in the internet that in Sweden there was, in the middle of the 1800th century, there was like a time when there was very like starvation in Sweden. And there was starvation in Sweden, and people didn't have money. They didn't have, there was no, like, if you were stuck in a small village somewhere, you were there. The animals didn't have anything to eat because it has been frost like in July. So there was no hay, there was nothing for the animals to eat. There was no milk, there was no fish, there was nothing. And if you were a man who couldn't walk properly, you were where you were, you were stuck. So this grandfather figure to this living man, he, at the very difficult part of the winter when there was no meat, he couldn't do anything, he ate something from this boy, some body part, and as far as I could sense, the mother of this child, she didn't do it. She didn't see it, and she didn't pay attention. She was kind of ignoring that the father, had gotten some form of meat. And this is like absolutely nightmare story, this is absolutely, I just want to say that it's a nightmare story. And obviously this story, the current living man, he's very old as well. He's very old, because now I'm talking about his grandfather in the 1800th century. He's very old. He's maybe like, I don't know, 70, 75 something. And obviously this type of message you would never deliver to a living person about what their grandfather has done, because as far as I sensed this, it was like the grandfather was really, he had never told anybody about this. He was very regretful about it, and he felt like it maybe kind of was part of the family story that nobody knew about, but it was something. And also this child, the small boy, he had passed away, and then this terrible action had happened to his his body, and nobody knew about it. And he felt like something, like his voice had never been spoken, that this was unknown. And especially if you, that's why I'm saying, like, if you open yourself up to the spiritual, if you picking up information and stuff, some of this information is gonna scare you. Some of this information is, a lot of the spirits are at unrest. They are at unrest for a reason. And if you have a spirit that is stalking you, or like following you, or if you sensing that somebody else have it, it's probably some kind of spirit that is at unrest with something, that there is this energy of something heavy type of emotions and stuff. And it's not something positive, it's not like benefiting the living person, and so on. And even if you know some of the stories that you maybe pick up and some of the messages, for example, they might be interesting for you or to give to somebody else, but you know the spirit world can kind of have messages, for example, about to my brother, that don't burn my furnitures, don't do this, I see this, I know that you do this, and I don't want you to do this. And my brother, he's like, I don't want to have these, I want to take my own decisions to burn them if I want to. It's not like some spirit in the spirit world who's kind of guiding me what I should do with them. And you know, and even maybe um, and that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of these things is maybe not something that you want to share to the person who is currently alive. And maybe something, it could definitely be some disturbing things about what people done in the past. Maybe somebody, you know, there can be some kind of grief, there can be some kind of trauma, there can be some kind of, you know, abuse, something terrible, you know. And this type of energy is maybe not serving somebody who is alive. And that's why I'm saying that to open yourself up to the spirit world is not always wise, because you might facing something. Sometimes, however, it can benefit you. And I had one situation where I was living in Dubai and I was having a rest in the afternoon. So I was asleep in the afternoon inside of an apartment that I was myself. And I was dreaming that I was looking through this hole, you know, like see a hole in the door of the front door. And I saw a man standing outside the door, and he was dangerous. I could feel it everywhere in my body that this man who is outside the door, he's dangerous. And I was like, I should not, under no circumstances, open the door. Not open the door. And then I wake up from my dream because the door bell is ringing. And I was waking up and I was absolutely frightened. I was absolutely scared because I was like, it must be the man outside the door, and I don't know what kind of man. I just know that he's dangerous. And I was not, you know, I was not drinking anything. I was not under any drugs. I was just sober, you know. So it's not from anything like that, you know. And I just knew that he was dangerous, and I knew that he must be the one who's outside the door. And I can't even express how scared I was, because I was standing up on my feet and I was like, I must go and look through this hole in the door and see if it's him. I will not open the door because I know that he's dangerous. I have gotten this message from somewhere. So I went to the front door, I looked out from the window and I see this man outside. And I know that when I saw him, you know, it was like, how can I dream? Because I was not sleepwalking like before this. I was just in my bed sleeping inside of a room, and the front door is in another end, you know. And when I come to the front door and I see this man outside there, I'm like, it's him. And obviously, if I wouldn't have had that dream about him, and I wouldn't have dreamt that he's dangerous, I would have opened the door and asked, hello, who are you and what do you want? Like, why are you here, you know? And I didn't open the door. So, and I had never seen this man either before, you know. I don't, only in the dream, but never in my life had I seen him before. And that was the only time that he came to and rang on the door. So maybe he was dangerous, I don't know. But I never opened the door because of that dream. So yeah. And also, I mean, sometimes if you are like having I'm giving you some examples to why I kind of think that sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not very beneficial. You have to kind of decide when you're gonna use your uh, intuition and your sensing and stuff. And especially, I think if you're asleep, it can benefit you, because when you're asleep, you want to know what's going on around you, even if you're asleep. And for example, when I was in anesthesia one time when I did my rhinoplasty, I the whole like surgery when and they were doing this, I was like sensing myself. I was like having the experience that I was outside the body and up in the corner of the surgery room and watching the whole surgery and what they were doing. And then when they were trying to wake me up, I didn't want to go back into the body. I was like watching myself and I was like, no, I don't want to go back into the body. I will stay here and watch this, see what the nurses are doing to me, And that was really strange. And I told my mother about that. I kind of had that experience that I was outside my body during the surgery and watching the whole surgery when they were doing it. And when they were trying to wake me up, I didn't want to kind of go back into the body. And she said that that's not very common because during anesthesia you are kind of blacked out completely. You shouldn't feel like you are awake in any way. You shouldn't. And I was like, but I was like watching the whole surgery. So that's not, I don't know what happened in that, but that was something with the consciousness, how it was processing everything, I think. But I'm just saying that if you have thoughts about the spiritual kind of encounters and stuff, I think when it can benefit you is when you are unconscious. It can benefit you to have your third eye open when you're unconscious, when you're asleep, to sense things around you. Because for me, example, when I'm asleep, I sense if something is around me. I sense if there is an animal coming to maybe around the house, then I know that, okay, something is outside. I go and look and I see the animal maybe. Or I can sense if something is coming, Maybe if a car is coming, passing by, I can sense it before it's even here. But, and that's benefiting when I'm asleep, when I'm unconscious. But for example, if you go into a big city, however, I have lived for example, in Dubai and I haven't had a problem. But because I can sort of cancel out, I don't sense things if I don't want to. But I mean, if you are a person, if you want to sense everything, you want to practice, maybe don't confuse yourself with sensing everything. Because I mean, you will have, especially if you're in a city, you will sense stuff about maybe your neighbor next door, and you will have all these. And especially if you have, for example, I had a friend and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And before she had her breast cancer diagnosed, I felt like I had these dreams about that, the brother of my friend was in a hospital and he was there sitting by the bed and he had to stay there in the hospital and he was like very sad about it. And I told him about it. And I said, like, I don't know, I just think that your sister must go on a breast cancer awareness. You really think she should do this? And he was like, no, she's not interested, And then a few months after, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And her brother, he was the one staying with her in the hospital all the time until she passed away. And I mean, sometimes when you get messages like that, because that was like, for her, it was a breast cancer. It had kind of gotten to a stage, it was spreading in her body. But if she would have discovered it earlier, she would have probably been able to cure her. But because I sensed this, I had the dreams about him in the hospital, and I felt like this, maybe it's gonna happen to him. It haven't even happened yet. And why you're picking up these things, it might be something, because you're in tune to things. Maybe you pick up something about somebody else's, kind of energies in the body or something. Maybe you feel like they have something, but There is also places where you might go and you feel like you don't really want to um, feel the energies, you know. Especially nowadays, I feel like there's a lot of places where I wouldn't really want to go. For example, going to places I went to, you know, some places where there has been a lot of like people dying, you know, and the sadness of people is really strong there, you know, in some places where a lot of people have died. And maybe if you are sensing stuff and so on, I wouldn't recommend you to go there, because it's not like you are not gonna fix all these problems of other people, you know. You only will experiencing and you will know stuff, but it's not like you will uh, you cannot remove the sadness if it's there, you know. And maybe you can do a little, but it's not like you, it's more like if it's meant to be removed, it might be, you know. But I think that a lot of people who working with energies and stuff, maybe they are a bit, you know, sensing other energies as well, and it can be easy to attract energies as well. You have to defend yourself against this attracting energies, you know. And I kind of sharing this because I think that I'm, you know, I'm like academic, you know, I'm like academic person. I studied a lot. I'm not like um, it's not like I looking for ghost. It's not like I'm looking for information in such way. But sometimes, even if you're kind of, I don't want this information. If it's something that um, is information coming to you, it might just be that you pick up and you know and you kind of have it. So yeah. And also I would say that another thing you can think about is if you go travel, for example, and you go to a place where there are people not speaking same language like you, and you have some encounter with some ghost, you maybe are not gonna understand what they are saying. You will maybe feel their emotions, maybe you can see pictures of what they kind of died of, or pictures of what they want to communicate to you, but they will not, you maybe cannot understand what they, if they're trying to make voicing, you know, voicing stuff to you. So yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of people, they say I don't believe in this type of stuff, you know. And I think myself also, I don't really necessarily believe in it, you know. It's not like it's a agenda, it's not like it's a reality, you know, that everybody have to dwell into. But I still cannot explain all these things of how exactly, I cannot explain exactly how I got all this information to me, or how some stuff happened to me. So, and that's why um, I just think that it's something that is unexplained, because we ourselves doesn't, as humans, we don't fully know, or kind of how our energy is functioning really. Maybe some people are very much, I don't know, picking up energies, you know, and maybe we have some levels of uh, you know, process frequencies and stuff into pictures in our head, and because of this we maybe are able to actually sense and know stuff. It maybe is not so complicated as, or maybe so mystical as it might seem, you know. I think it's mostly because people, um, we don't have this exact, this is how it is, you know, how it functions, and that's why some people are kind of skeptical to it. But yeah, and I will say that I sort of kind of say I don't want to have any ghost encounters, I don't want to sense anything. But yes, I do sense, and I can probably pick up some stuff. And sometimes I maybe have used this, sometimes I have kind of used this ability. There was one time when I was traveling and I kind of needed to know where to go. And I was just putting out that question of where is the like entrance to the old city of where I was. And there was like a man that I sensed that was the guardian of that type of entrance of the old city, and he kind of showed me where it was, and it was like behind some trash cans and behind like a street restaurants, and that's how I would never have found that entrance unless I had kind of asked for guidance about it, and or use the spirit world. But I would say I don't use the spirit world for anything, but maybe about dangers, if there's something that's uh, dangerous. For example, I was one time I dreamt that I lost two of my legs, like both my legs, and I knew that I must be super careful, like in the time ahead, because something is gonna maybe try and happen to me, and I faced a car that was trying to drive on me in a green like crossover in a street. And because I had dreamt that I was about to lose my legs. I mean, I haven't lost my legs because thanks God I kind of listened to that guidance. And I knew that when this car came, I was like, I'm gonna lose my legs if I'm not acting on this. So I knew I had to throw myself up on the car, and that's what I did, and it saved my legs, that they didn't get underneath the car because it was like a drunk driver. And the only thing I happened to have was that I flew down from the car when he put the brakes in the car, and then I kind of scratched my knee and had a little bit of, my neck kind of snatched back because of the balancing. But it was nothing else. So if you have like, I think you should ask for guidance, more for supporting you to kind of to guide you from away from dangers, because sometimes these kind of protecting type of energies and ghost or whatever you want to call it, they might support you. And of course, then you can still also pick up the spirits that maybe are not really um, settled, in this world. They might still have something going on here, or that they may be following or is with somebody, and they maybe have some information, or they maybe are in a specific place, and so on. And but those are kind of a specific case, I would say, of spirits. And sometimes you might dream, if you are very open, your whole third eye, you just dream stuff whenever there's something that might also happen. But I think that, oh my god, this video is really long. I just think that don't open yourself to the spirit world before you have worked with your intuition, because your intuition is the number one thing, to one of your senses, I would say, like to kind of process information and kind of sense what does this mean, is this right, is it wrong, that you kind of sensing and knowing, to work on your intuition first, and then you can maybe open a bit to this information flow. But I've seen some people, they go and do some, I don't know, they chasing the ghost, and they say they want to see them. And I don't recommend you to do that at all. Don't do it, because it's like, think about it as if you would chase a living person. It's not right to do that either. It's like you might be, it's like something you criminal. So don't chase ghosts, and don't try and like have them to show themselves, and don't try and like fool yourself into seeing them or something. But I mean, think more about if it's some information that can be valid to support somebody, or to help knowing if there is a danger to come, or if there is information like that, you know. That's something I think is more useful. And then, as I told you, this horrific story of this old man, you know, from the 1800th century. I mean, that information, if you have that type of information coming to you, um, you don't just share it to the person who is living, like the grandchild of that person, for example. And maybe, for example, I think there was a when this little girl was underneath clay, and I told the man who knew who she was. I think that was kind of, you know, like a limit. I would say that I, because they hadn't found her, and it can be very sensitive to tell somebody that is missing somebody about that that the person is saying to you, because I'm not even relative to this girl, you know, that where she is and what happened to her, and that she's, you know, dead. And yeah, so just think about how it can impact the people that you sharing it with, especially if you're going to any place. I see a lot of people doing these, you know, videos where they go to often to like a castle or something, and they found some spirit there or some information, and they share it. But think about the fact that these um, people who lived there one time, you know, they also have the right to have the privacy. That it might be that information, even if you can sense it, maybe don't have to um, maybe you don't have to mention their names and give it to an audience, you know. Maybe it's better to sort of let some things not be spoken, you know, especially not to connect it to some specific people, you know. But there is a lot of, I have some other stories as well like this, but I think that I will not take all of that in the video because it's just a lot. And still there's like, it's not happening all the time, this type of information flow, because you have to think about, it's often very like significant things that you might dream about or sensing, you know. So and for me, I typically I have like set as what I want for out of the spirit world would be that only giving me the information that is beneficial to kind of avoid danger, or kind of, you know, help solve something, but not like bring all like drama from the past and just tell anybody who's alive about it, you know, because it maybe doesn't have any purpose. It maybe some things are better untold, you know. And that's why I did also this video, is because, especially because now I'm doing these ASMR videos and working with energies, and I want, because maybe you think that, you know, if I'm using a spirit world or something, I'm not. I'm not using the spirit world in the ASMR video. I'm not like bringing in any of that type of energy, and I'm not like um, you know, I'm not doing that, you know. It's not. And also, for example, working with the third eye, I will not do such kinds of energetic works that open you or like have you experiencing things like connected to the spirit world, because I think that that type of decision, it must be directly from yourself. It shouldn't be like, and I think that that's maybe a warning as well a bit, because I've seen some ASMR videos where there are some people claiming to be like incorporating, you know, maybe some spirits and other things, and you have to think about what does that actually mean, you know, for you who is viewing this and kind of connecting and tuning into it, you know, that you also guarding yourself and you choosing what content is you know, benefiting for you, and not having some you know, negative energies like that coming to you. So I will end this video now, but I just wanted to give a little thoughts on the spirit world. And obviously I don't know how it works, I don't know how we tune into it, but I think that we can have some information that we can understand, and most important is that your intuition is working.